Control group created.
Kevin Spacey became a widely beloved actor with his portrayal of complex, borderline psychopathic characters. Men who were charming yet twisted, smug yet relatable. His accuracy in embodying such roles made the allegations of predatory behavior against him believable. In Hollywood, a single allegation can destroy a career, particularly if it aligns with public perception. Spacey's career was defined by his embodiment of morally ambiguous characters, which made the real-life accusations against him seem plausible. But Spacey didn't have just one accusation, he had more than 50, which as you can imagine led to his career coming to a screeching halt in 2017 when the allegations came to light. Today, he says he is flat broke, facing foreclosure.
Where do you live now? Well, it's funny you asked that question, because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore, is being foreclosed on. My house is being sold at auction. Why is it being foreclosed? Because I can't pay the bills that I owe.
Although Kevin is not currently exonerated from all charges, he has had some victories in court. Many people still support Spacey. They see him as a victim of false allegations and cancel culture. However, others say there are simply too many allegations for this to be a smear campaign. Not to mention that two of his accusers conveniently died during their legal pursuits against the actor. Today we are going to dive into the mysterious case of Kevin Spacey, examine the interplay between public perception and career longevity, the media's role in all of this, as well as analyze the cryptic messages he left us along the way.
Because I can promise you this. If I didn't pay the price for the things we both know I did do, I'm certainly not going to pay the price for the things I didn't do.
Amid the accusations making headlines, many people expressed anger and disappointment since Spacey is a beloved actor with an amazing career catalog. His acting origins began in high school, where Kevin pursued musical theater after failing to become a comedian. Spacey graduated from Chatsworth High School in Los Angeles, California. He packed his bags and moved across the country to attend Juilliard in New York City from 1979 to 1981. Throughout the 1980s, Kevin took his first step into professional acting. He performed on Broadway, starring in a production of Henrik Ibsen's Ghosts, Molaire's The Misanthrope, and David Robb's Hurly Burly, among others. By the mid-80s, his profile grew substantially, performing on Broadway while simultaneously appearing in film and television. After substantial roles in films like See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Dad, Spacey won a Tony Award in 1991 for his portrayal of Uncle Louie in Neil Simon's Broadway hit Lost in Yonkers. For the next 5 years, he continued to establish himself in Hollywood, gaining prominence for his role as Verbal Kint in the 1995 crime thriller film The Usual Suspects. His performance as the enigmatic criminal won him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Thank you so much, Mom, for driving me to those acting classes on Ventura Boulevard when I was 16. I told you they would pay off, and here's the pudding.
Spacey then appeared in blockbuster films like Outbreak, Seven, A Time to Kill, LA Confidential, The Negotiator, and American Beauty, where Kevin received praise for his performances before earning another Tony Award nomination in 1999 for a revival of Eugene O'Neill's Broadway play, The Iceman Cometh. That same year, he earned his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. However, his career took a bit of a nosedive throughout the early 2000s as Spacey failed to produce another commercial hit. In 2006, he appeared as Lex Luthor in what should have been a blockbuster hit in the form of Superman Returns, but the film earned a disappointing $391 million worldwide on a $223 million budget, forcing Warner Brothers to cancel the sequel. Outside of the 2008 heist drama film 21, which Spacey helped produce, and the comedy film Horrible Bosses, it seemed like Kevin had reached a point in his career where the number of quality roles available started to decrease. As we approached the 2010s, we started to get in the full swing of the fast food era of movies. CGI, pretty-faced actors, recycled plots, predictable endings, while straying away from the types of films that Spacey thrived in. Character-driven, slow-paced, twisted, and unpredictable. Although he was a talented actor, Spacey wasn't considered a box office draw, nor did he acquire the same star power as a Brad Pitt or Will Smith. Amid what seemed to be the slow decay of his career, Spacey had a resurgence in 2013 with the Netflix original series House of Cards. His career was back at an all-time high in the mid-2010s until some shocking shocking allegations would be revealed, bringing his career to a screeching halt and ultimately causing the downfall he is still trying to recover from. Oh, and by the way, we are so close to reaching 2 million subscribers, so if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. I love making these videos for you guys, although I'm not gonna lie, from the planning to the scripting to the editing, it can be quite taxing on me. And that's where the sponsor of today's video, InVideo AI, comes in. InVideo AI is the world's most used AI video creator with over 10 million users across 150 plus countries. It's the only AI video creator out of the 20 plus tools that I have tried that gives you the power and control to help with scripting, editing, and finding relevant footage to bring your project to life. All you have to do is start with a simple text prompt and it creates the first rough draft for you.
To Pimp a Butterfly, released in 2015, was a masterpiece of storytelling.
From there, you can fine-tune your video with further text prompts. Want the intro to be more engaging? Done. Want to translate the video to French? Done. Want to add subtitles? Done. One of the coolest features is the ability to clone your voice and make it narrate the video in your voice in any language. You can spend hundreds of dollars per year on an editing software, or you can try InVideo AI for free. If you are serious about video creation, you should get a paid plan that starts at just $20 per month, which is the one that I have, and it will remove the watermark and give you access to voice cloning and high quality stock footage. You can use the link in the description or scan the QR code and use my code PatrickCC50 to get 2 times the number of video generation credits in the first month and bring to life projects that seemed out of reach before. Before we dive into Spacey's downfall, we must first understand the undoubtedly predatory Hollywood culture, as well as understand the business of unearthing allegations. It's far too common in Hollywood that people in positions of authority have abused their power, exploiting aspiring actors and staff through coercion, harassment, and assault, thus creating the casting couch phenomenon, where both men and women are pressured into providing sexual favors in exchange for career advancement. The pervasive culture of silence and fear of retaliation has allowed these abuses to continue unchecked for decades. However, in the past few years, justice is beginning to be served, as we see more and more powerful predators get exposed for their harmful crimes. This has resulted in victims feeling empowered and confident to speak up about their experiences, because they know they have a better chance of being believed and not silenced or ridiculed. But some people believe that the pendulum has swung the other way, and now allegations are being used as a tactic for people to get attention or simply cancel the people they don't like. There is no doubt that the media is benefiting from these allegations, whether true or false. If anyone goes on social media and makes an allegation, you might see mainstream publications talking about it the very next day. Since nobody really buys magazines or newspapers anymore, these media outlets are reliant on website traffic so they can sell advertising slots to brands. The more page views they get, the more money they make from ads. Same thing with YouTubers. Therefore, they are incentivized to come up with the best, juiciest headline to get someone to click. But with attention spans dropping rapidly, most people click, read the horrifying accusations, and just take them as fact. People say things like, oh yeah, I heard that person was a PDF file, or oh yeah, I heard that person is a racist. And those conversations spread like wildfire. The readers get their shocking news, the publications get their ad revenue, and the alleged perpetrator just kind of has to deal with it. Now, if the allegations turn out to be true, then, well, it's not like we feel bad for the perpetrator, right? If the allegations turn out to be untrue, or the claimant recants their statement or walks it back somehow, those same publications who initially reported don't often report the news that would exonerate the alleged perpetrator. That's because most people probably don't click on the "he's innocent" article, so no money in that, and nobody wants to admit that they were wrong and got duped into spreading misinformation. Plus, no matter what new information comes to light or what the results of legal proceedings are, some people will still think in the back of their mind that what initially was alleged could be true. This is why public perception and branding is so important. If the world sees you as this nice, unproblematic guy, then an allegation probably won't take you down. But in the case of Kevin Spacey, there were just far too many allegations and it just seemed believable. The reason I put so much emphasis on seemed is because according to the legal proceedings and the courts as of right now, he's innocent. But according to the public, he's guilty. So let's dive in. It all began in 2017 when actor Anthony Rapp would be the first public Kevin Spacey accuser. Anthony is mostly known for his appearance in the science fiction television series Star Trek Discovery. In an interview with BuzzFeed News, Rapp claimed actor Kevin Spacey made an unwanted sexual advance towards him in 1986 when Rapp was 14 and Spacey was 26. At the time, Rapp and Spacey were performing on Broadway when Spacey invited Rapp to a party at his home. According to Rapp, he was the only child in attendance and didn't notice that he was the only guest left until a seemingly intoxicated Kevin hoisted him into bed. He picked me up like a groom picks up the bride over the threshold, but I don't squirm away initially because I'm like, what's going on? And he lays down on top of me. He was trying to seduce me, Rapp recalled. I don't know if I would have used that language, but I was aware that he was trying to get with me. Rapp eventually squirmed free from underneath Spacey, collecting himself in the bathroom before informing Kevin that he was leaving. He followed me to the front door of the apartment, and as I opened the door to leave, he was leaning on the front door frame, and he was like, "Are you sure you want to go?" I said, "Yes, good night," and then I did leave. At one point, Rapp met with a lawyer to discuss the incident. The lawyer told him there was no case worth pursuing. Although Kevin's behavior sounds incredibly creepy, it doesn't really seem like he's being accused of a crime here, but the media absolutely exploded with this story. Spacey responded to the accusation with a tweet saying that he did not remember the encounter, but quote, "If I did behave then as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior." This is definitely a strange way to respond to this allegation. Like, saying you don't remember kind of leaves the door open for the story being true. And it wouldn't have just been inappropriate behavior, it would have been sexual assault and pedophilia. Additionally, he concluded the apology by saying, "I have had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man." Many people felt like he was trying to deflect or gain sympathy by pandering to the LGBTQ community. News outlets would report on the statements from other celebrities who believed Spacey was attempting to change the subject and shift focus away from Rapp's accusations. The next day, October 30th, Roberto Cavazos, who is a Mexican actor, made accusations that he says are on the verge of being called harassment. In a translated post, he said, "There are many of us who have a Kevin Spacey story. It seems that all you had to do was be a man under 30 for Mr. Spacey to feel free to touch you. It was so common that it even became a local joke." In very bad taste. The next day, October 31st, Daniel Beal told The Sun he was having a cigarette break when the Oscar-winning actor sat beside him on a bench, flashed his privates and said, "It's big, isn't it?" Disgusted Dan returned to work at the bar, only to be followed by Spacey, who insisted the then 19-year-old take his expensive Swiss watch. Dan said yesterday, "I thought he was joking, but he took off his watch and gave it to me. Looking back, I realized it was to keep me quiet." Also on October 31st, an anonymous man named John told the BBC that he met Spacey in 1984 when he was 16, and they stayed in touch by writing letters to one another. When John was 17, Spacey invited him for a weekend at his New York City home, where he was, quote, "charming and brotherly." On the first night, Spacey became affectionate in ways John found unwelcome. He put his hand on John's thigh, an arm around his shoulder, and rubbed his arm. At bedtime, John said Spacey asked him to share his bed, but John insisted on sleeping on the sofa. The following morning, John said he woke up with Spacey's head on his stomach and his arms wrapped around him. Some people were suspicious as to the way that these accusations were coming out. It's rare for victims to share their stories, and it is uncommon for men to admit that they were assaulted, especially by another man. Some people looked at this as a calculated attack on Spacey's career, whereas others think that he was such a predator that these victims finally felt comfortable sharing their trauma. These allegations were unearthed at a critical time for Spacey, as he was receiving a career resurgence with his role as Francis J. Underwood in the Netflix original series House of Cards. House of Cards is based on the 1989 novel of the same name. The series is a political drama that follows the ruthless and ambitious Frank Underwood as he navigates the treacherous landscape of Washington, D.C. After being passed over for the position of Secretary of State, Frank, a cunning and manipulative House Majority Whip, embarks on a calculated quest for power. Alongside his equally ambitious wife, Frank employs a combination of manipulation, betrayal, and even murder to climb the political ladder. The series delves into themes of power, corruption and the dark side of American politics, showcasing Frank's ruthless pursuit of the presidency and the moral compromises he makes along the way. To say this show was a hit is a massive understatement. It is potentially the best Netflix original in their entire catalog. House of Cards is the first original online-only streaming television series to receive major Emmy nominations. The show also earned 8 Golden Globe Award nominations, with Robin Wright winning for Best Actress in 2014 and Spacey winning for Best Actor in 2015. However, amid allegations from Anthony Rapp, filming was suspended on the 6th and final season of House of Cards. Not long after, Spacey was removed from the cast and his executive producer role. Without Spacey on the show, it suffered immensely, which led to the season ending abruptly in the worst way possible in the middle of season 6. It's also important to consider that Kevin embodied the character of Frank Underwood so well. He was so evil and conniving that it just strengthened people's beliefs that he was guilty. Also, these weird, cryptic YouTube videos he posted did not help him, but we'll get to that later. Spacey's future projects were also either cancelled or recast. The biographical film Gore, starring Spacey, which Netflix planned to distribute, was cancelled, and the network proceeded to sever all ties with him. He was scheduled to appear in the biographical crime thriller All the Money in the World. However, his scenes were cut out and Christopher Plummer replaced him in reshoots. In an interview with Variety, Plummer explained, "I think it's very sad what happened to him. Kevin is such a talented and terrifically gifted actor, and it's so sad. It's such a shame. That's all I can say, because that's it." In just 5 days since Anthony Rapp's initial allegations, Kevin Spacey was losing his career, but more victims were being revealed nearly every day. When Justin Dawes was 16 years old in 1988, he said Spacey, who was 29, invited him and a male friend over to watch a movie, but instead gave him a cocktail and played gay prawn. Justin says that Spacey invited just them two and nobody else, resulting in an awkward situation. "He knew that I was in high school," he said. "It was pretty clear. But while he found the situation sleazy and manipulative, he said it was not intimidating or pushy. At the time, the 16-year-old felt like he should have realized that Spacey wanted him to come over for reasons related to sex. Like maybe this was kind of a coded thing or something that I agreed to." Again, these people were not necessarily trying to accuse Spacey of a crime, but rather trying to highlight his creepy behavior. Filmmaker Tony Montana accused Spacey of groping him in 2003.
Kevin approached me. I smiled. He leaned in. His right arm was around my shoulder, and he put his hand underneath the bar, and that's when he grabbed me. And he grabbed me very hard, and I've never been groped before, and
Is it time? We shall overcome.
and he looked at me, and he, in a very sobering voice, and this sardonic look in his face said, "This designates ownership." He's not a big guy, but he was a person with power, and his power at that moment rendered me helpless.
Montana told the Los Angeles Times, "I'm not going after Kevin for money. I don't wish him any ill will. It's just, he did something 14 years ago that's affecting not only him, but all the people who work on that show." Actor Harry Dreyfuss claimed that Kevin Spacey groped him at age 18 during a script reading session, while his father, actor Richard Dreyfuss, was in the room. Over the course of about 20 seconds, centimeter by centimeter, Kevin crawled his hand from my thigh toward my crotch. My mind went blank. Suddenly, he had completed his journey and now he had all of me in his hand. I stopped reading the script and my eyes went wide. On November 2nd, 2017, Variety reported that Kevin's publicist Stacey Wolf and his talent agency Creative Artists Agency were parting ways with him. On November 8th, a former news anchor, Heather Unruh, accused Spacey of groping her son at a Nantucket bar in July of 2016.
Actor Kevin Spacey sexually assaulted my son. The victim, my son, was a starstruck, straight, 18-year-old young man. Kevin Spacey bought him drink after drink after drink. And when my son was drunk, Spacey made his move and sexually assaulted him. And I want to make it clear, this was a criminal act. Spacey stuck his hand inside my son's pants and grabbed his genitals. This was completely unexpected. And my son's efforts to shift his body to remove Spacey's hand were only momentarily successful. The violation continued. My son panicked. He froze. A concerned woman quickly came to my very shaken son's side and asked if he was okay. She told him to run, and he did. He ran as fast as he could, all the way to his grandmother's house.
It's important to remember this Nantucket incident because this is one of the ones that would escalate to a formal trial. 1 week after that, headlines emerged stating that at least 20 young men over the age of 18 had come forward at the London theater, the Old Vic, to report alleged sexual misconduct by Spacey. The Old Vic is a 1,000-seat, not-for-profit producing theater in London. Spacey was the artistic director of the Old Vic between 2004 and 2015. This allegation essentially paints the picture that Spacey was using this theater, which was constantly filled with underage aspiring actors, as a way for him to have constant direct access to children he could prey on. On October 31st, 2017, the Old Vic engaged an external law firm, Lewis Silkin, to undertake the investigation with a remit to look into the claims made in the media and elsewhere. This investigation concluded that there have been 20 personal allegations of incidents relating to the Old Vic ranging from 1995 to 2013, with the majority, all but 2, falling before 2009. And if you think that was very non-descriptive, take a look at this middle paragraph. No legal claims, formal grievances, formal disputes, settlement agreements, or payments made or authorized were made at all in relation to Kevin Spacey during his tenure. It has also not been possible to verify any of these allegations, and it is important to note that Kevin Spacey has not commented on them. The review cannot therefore make any findings of fact about the alleged misconduct. I get that they have to clarify this for legal reasons, but doesn't that admission basically nullify this entire press release? It says that 20 people allege Kevin Spacey of inappropriate behavior, but they don't define what that inappropriate behavior is. Is it touching? Is it kissing? Is it sexual advances? Is it taking his shirt off and rubbing his nipples? Is it farting in the theater? They don't mention any of the claimants' names, they don't share any of their testimonies, and they said they hired a lawyer to investigate the claims and can't verify if any of the claims or allegations are true. If you can believe it, I didn't even include all of the allegations that are out there. Some outlets have reported as little as 15 people that have spoke out against him, and some report as many as 50 people that have spoke out against him. And even after doing the research myself, I couldn't even give you a number, but it is a lot. But there does seem to be a pattern. Some of the allegations are just vaguely describing creepy and inappropriate behavior, which is technically not a crime, whereas others are accusing him of groping or grabbing their private parts, which is most certainly sexual assault. Now, the sheer volume of accusations as well as the vagueness makes some people look at it suspiciously, like it's a calculated Hollywood hit piece, whereas others just look at the massive amount of allegations as confirmation that he is a horrible predator. Now people just have the confidence to actually speak their truth. But this cryptic video he posted at the end of 2018 only made things worse for him. In a video titled "Let Me Be Frank," posted on Christmas Eve 2018, he is method acting as his character Frank Underwood from House of Cards, where he seemingly drops coded messages that are technically him playing a character, but he seems to address his real-life accusations.
I know what you want. Oh, sure, they may have tried to separate us, but what we have is too strong, it's too powerful. I mean, after all, we shared everything, you and I. I told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable of. I shocked you with my honesty, but mostly I challenged you and made you think. And you trusted me, even though you knew you shouldn't. So we're not done, no matter what anyone says. And besides, I know what you want. You want me back. Of course, some believed everything and have just been waiting with bated breath to hear me confess it all. They're just dying to have me declare that everything said is true and that I got what I deserved. Wouldn't that be easy? If it was all so simple. Only you and I both know it's never that simple, not in politics and not in life. But you wouldn't believe the worst without evidence, would you? You wouldn't rush to judgments without facts, would you? Did you? Because I can promise you this. If I didn't pay the price for the things we both know I did do, I'm certainly not going to pay the price for the things I didn't do.
If he is innocent, This is brilliant. If he is guilty, this is disturbing. 3 months after this video was posted, Linda Culkin, who was arrested for stalking Kevin Spacey in 2014, died. Between 2009 and 2011, federal investigators said Culkin mailed threats to several people in their workplaces in the United States and abroad. One of her hoax bomb threats caused police in a foreign city to evacuate a building and close off a neighborhood. Another, an envelope that contained a white powder that looked similar to anthrax, caused people nearby to be quarantined and fear for their health. Prosecutors also said that she was obsessed with actor Kevin Spacey, saying she threatened to kill the actor. She also sent bomb threats to 2 of his workplaces and sent threats to his co-workers and associates. Culkin had in her apartment a picture of Spacey with his eyes blacked out and mouth scribbled out, and multiple copies of a page entitled "Killing Kevin Spacey," authorities said. After the stalker passed away, many news outlets were reporting that she was an accuser or she had some sort of information that she was unleashing about Kevin Spacey, but I couldn't find anything to support those claims. Basically, it was just a coincidence. Midway through 2019, Spacey was arraigned in a Nantucket courtroom on an indecent assault and battery charge for the alleged incident where he groped the 18-year-old Heather Unruh's son. Keep in mind that the vast majority of the allegations that were coming out were many decades old, whereas this one reportedly happened in July of 2016, so it was well within the statute of limitations for a criminal proceeding. On May 30th, 2019, Nantucket District Court Judge Thomas Barrett granted access by Spacey's attorneys to 6 months of the alleged victim's text messages following the alleged incident, and the surveillance video from the club car, the location where the incident took place and where Unruh's son worked as a busboy, from 5 p.m. July 7, 2016 to 3 a.m. July 8th, according to court records. On May 31st, Spacey's defense attorneys alleged that the accuser erased potentially incriminating text messages from the time surrounding his encounter with Spacey before providing screenshots of their conversation to the police. Clearly, the accuser has gone to great lengths to remove text messages he believes did not fit his narrative, defense attorney Alan Jackson wrote in the filing. The prosecution is aware of this and hid that information from the defense. On June 20th, the court was informed that the accuser's cell phone had mysteriously gone missing and was nowhere to be found. The judge then ordered if the phone was not located by July 8th, then the accuser and his family had to testify about what happened, and by July 8th, the cell phone was never found. The accuser testified from the witness stand where he acknowledged a typo in the police report. It was initially revealed to the court that he reported the assault in October of 2016, which was 3 months after it allegedly happened. He then admitted that he actually reported the assault in October of 2017, 15 months after it allegedly happened, which was exactly the same time that all of the other allegations were coming out against Kevin Spacey. After he was asked about the typo, as well as the deleted text messages and the missing phone, he decided to invoke his Fifth Amendment right and remain silent.
He's the sole witness that can establish the circumstances of his allegation on the night in question. This case needs to be dismissed, and I believe it needs to be dismissed today.
The judge seemed to agree, saying he wasn't sure if the case would continue or collapse. The accuser's mother, a former Boston TV anchor, admitted today,
I deleted a few things.
With deleted evidence and now refusing to give a testimony, there was no case, so it was dropped. But there was another man who was suing Kevin Spacey. The anonymous accuser, who said he decided not to reveal his identity for fear of harassment and personal embarrassment, filed the lawsuit in September of 2018. He alleged that during a massage in October of 2016, Spacey forced him to touch his genitals before asking if he could perform oral on him. The case was filed at the Los Angeles Superior Court, then was moved to a federal court, and a pre-trial conference had been scheduled for May of 2019. However, we never got to go to trial because the accuser died. A source told Variety that the accuser died of cancer. Therefore, the case was dismissed. Spacey, likely feeling happy about having 2 cases back-to-back dismissed, he uploaded another cryptic video as Frank Underwood titled KTWK, an acronym for Kill Them With Kindness.
You didn't really think I was going to miss the opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas, did you? It's been a pretty good year, and I'm grateful to have my health back. And in light of that, I've made some changes in my life, and I'd like to invite you to join me. As we walk into 2020, I want to cast my vote for more good in this world.
Ah, yes, I know what you're thinking. Can he be serious?
I'm dead serious. And it's not that hard, trust me. The next time someone does something you don't like, you can go on the attack, but you can also hold your fire and do the unexpected. You can kill them with kindness.
This guy definitely has a professional hitman friend named Kindness. And would you believe that the very next day after this YouTube video was posted, Christmas Day, December 25th, 2019, another Kevin Spacey accuser took his own life. Ari Ben was a Norwegian author who told the BBC about the alleged incident dated back to 2007. We had a great talk. He sat right beside me. After 5 minutes, he said, "Hey, let's go out and have a cigarette." Then he puts his hand under the table and grabs me by the balls. I should mention that Ari was not trying to pursue a legal case against Spacey. His death, again, is just merely a coincidence that he had accused Kevin of misconduct in the past. But Spacey's legal troubles were not over. Remember Anthony Rapp, the actor who was the first to expose Spacey's alleged behavior? Well, he finally decided to sue Spacey 3 years after he made the initial allegations, which originally took place in 1986. In the suit, Rapp was joined by a man who requested to remain anonymous and accused Spacey of abusing him in 1983 when he was 14 and Spacey was 24. However, on June 17th, 2021, the anonymous accuser was dismissed from the case due to his refusal to publicly identify himself. As Rapp's trial against Spacey commenced in October of 2022, it was revealed that Rapp provided an inaccurate description of the apartment where the alleged abuse took place. On October 17th, the judge dismissed the emotional distress charges as a duplicate of all the battery charges. Not only did the jury find Spacey not liable of all charges, but they actually ordered Rapp to pay Spacey $39,000 in damages. And it somehow gets even crazier. A judge has ordered Kevin Spacey to pay House of Cards production company MRC nearly $31 million for alleged misconduct behind the scenes. MRC argued that Spacey owed them millions in lost profits because his misconduct forced them to remove him from the 6th season of the show, and it had to trim the season from 13 episodes to 8. Again, they don't exactly detail what alleged inappropriate behavior took place, but the judge found that Spacey violated MRC's harassment policy with respect to 5 House of Cards crew members. Despite this ruling, in February 2024, Spacey reached an agreement with MRC to reduce a $31 million judgment to $1 million. But in return, Spacey will back arguments from MRC in a legal battle against its insurer that he was written out of the show because he was too sick to return, which would allow them to collect on a $150 million insurance policy. These people don't care about victims. They care about money. They tried to get $30 million from Spacey, and they realized that they couldn't, or maybe he couldn't pay, so then they teamed up with Spacey to convince the insurance company that he was too sick to perform in the show, and that's why they fired him, which could have potentially granted them an up to $150 million payday. But we all know he wasn't too sick to perform. He was canceled for being an alleged deviant PDF file. But Spacey was fighting yet another case in the United Kingdom after he was charged by the Crown Prosecution Service, or CPS, with 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 different complainants on May 26, 2022. The alleged offenses occurred between 2005 and 2013 in London and Gloucestershire. Yeah, that's the best I got for that town name. Then a few months later, they added an additional 7 charges against Spacey, all related to a single complainant arising from incidents alleged to have occurred between 2001 and 2004. One of the victims claimed Spacey, quote, approached him and gave him a hug, kissed his neck, grabbed his crotch, and squeezed while telling the man to be cool, be cool. Another victim alleged that he had been drugged by the actor and said he woke up to Spacey performing a sexual act on him. But after a month-long trial, a jury acquitted Spacey of all charges.
I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reach their decision. And I am humbled by the outcome today.
Being acquitted is slightly different than being found not guilty. Acquittal means that the prosecution did not present enough evidence to prove Spacey as guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. For the past 6 to 7 years, Spacey has been in non-stop legal battles, and although he has yet to be proven guilty of a crime, he has entirely lost his career. Unable to make any money from movies and television, he claims he is facing foreclosure and possible bankruptcy on an interview with Piers Morgan.
Are you facing bankruptcy?
Civilian structure complete.
Been a couple of times when I thought I was going to file, but we've managed to sort of dodge it.
How much money do you have?
Civilian structure complete.
None. I still owe a lot of legal bills that I have not been able to pay.
You're actually in debt?
Yes.
Do you mind me asking how much you owe?
It's considerable.
Millions?
Many millions, yes.
I had no idea he won. The media is disgusting. What is bizarre is that the allegations were heavily publicized, but the fact that he was found guilty of none of them was barely covered publicly, leaving most people who haven't actually followed events carefully still under the impression he was found guilty. If we were to piece together all of the allegations, this is what the media and victims were trying to convey to the public. Kevin Spacey was seemingly preying on sometimes underage boys as well as young men who were questioning their sexuality, or at least he thought they were questioning their sexuality. He then lured them in with his power and esteemed status, and based on a lot of these victims' testimonials, he was giving them the impression that he was interested in them sexually, whether through verbal cues or body language or situational cues. However, there were also tons of accusations of him straight up grabbing them or groping them or touching them inappropriately or kissing them, hoping they were also interested in him. Many of them mentioned that the moment they showed some pushback or some resistance that he seemingly gave up. If any of this is true, at best, it's still assault. Like, none of this could be really deemed as flirting. And at worst, it's potentially pedophilia and R-wording. The victims often say that they froze or panicked in the moment. They didn't know how to push him away or really escape from the situation. Then they didn't report the crimes because they didn't want their masculinity to be questioned, or they didn't want people to know or think they were gay, or they didn't think anyone would care or believe them. Very similar reasons why female victims of SA don't often speak up. The victims had more reasons to stay silent than to speak up, which seemingly allowed Spacey to act in this predatory manner for decades. But again, all of this is just alleged because, well, he was never found guilty of any of this. You have to ask yourself, is the sheer volume of accusations enough to prove that he is guilty of being this horrible predator? Because again, he was not found guilty of any crime, innocent until proven guilty, right? Does his method acting tendencies and creepy YouTube videos make you believe that he was essentially flaunting his power and ability to get away with such heinous crimes? And does this make you look at his art and movie characters differently? Even after knowing all of this information, can you separate the art from the artist? Well, that's up for you to decide. Drink water and subscribe to the channel. Is it a coincidence that 3 convicted pedophiles were working at the largest children's television network during the peak of its success and popularity? What if I told you that there was also a convicted pedophile managing the children that were often cast on the network's shows? What if I told you that many of the underage girls were forced to kiss men over the age of 18 on camera? And then what if you found out that multiple of these young victims grew up and were caught performing inappropriate sexual acts with children themselves, repeating the cycle of abuse? These are not rumors. These are facts. When you combine these facts with the realization that many of the jokes, physical comedy, outfits, and even random pieces of the set were sexual innuendos, at some point you'd start to eliminate the possibility of this being a coincidence and start thinking this was all by design. Today I'm going to break down exactly how a powerful network of executives separated child actors from their families, have their actors depend on them for emotional support, then abuse their power to overwork these children, rake in billions in profits, silence anyone who dared to speak out, and then bragged about it in front of the whole world. And just like most organized crime operations, they typically funnel up to one top boss, the untouchable creator of this machine. Insert Dan Schneider, the man behind the camera, the esteemed Nickelodeon producer who created some of the most iconic children's television programs in history.
At the end of the day, I love it when the cast gets sassy with me because I get to write all the scripts with some very talented writers, but I can put them in any horrible predicament I choose.
Dan Schneider was a child actor himself, most notable for his role as Dennis on Head of the Class. During this time, he and his co-star Brian Robbins became great friends. The pair were later asked to co-host the second annual Kids' Choice Awards by a Nickelodeon producer called Albie Hecht. The three men struck a friendship and frequently discussed creating a project together. By 1993, Hecht had become a high-level executive at Nickelodeon and challenged Robbins to pitch him a children's television series that their new production studio could pitch to Nickelodeon. At the time, Nickelodeon was not yet the powerhouse it would become. The network struggled to become profitable in the 80s as they were losing millions of dollars per year. One year, they were actually the lowest viewed network out of all US cable channels. Early 90s cartoons like Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy were allowing the network to pick up higher viewership, but their live-action shows struggled. So Brian recruited Dan and they came up with a sketch comedy show like Saturday Night Live, but for children, called All That. Dan wrote in his personal blog, "We did a nationwide talent search and got very lucky. Every kid we ended up hiring for the original All That cast turned out to be fantastic. Josh Server, Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Katrina Johnson, Lori Beth Denberg, Angelique Bates, and Alyssa Reyes." Dan recalled that the show didn't test well and that the network felt like kids wouldn't like a sketch comedy show, but they took a chance on him and the show immediately became a huge success for Nickelodeon as soon as it aired. All That would go on to have 10 seasons and become one of the most culturally significant teen Nickelodeon shows of all time. Imagine how proud the executives were of Dan's performance. They were finally getting the big break they needed, and Nickelodeon was coming closer to becoming a profitable network. The only thing that could ruin their momentum would be some sort of scandal or reports of child abuse, and that's exactly what happened according to Angelique Bates, who was only 12 years old when the abuse began. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the easiest way to play fantasy sports. Not just basketball, you can make picks on baseball, football, hockey, UFC, and more. Just pick whether you think your favorite player's stats will be higher or lower, and you can make big money. You can make your own entry with as few as 2 picks and 3x your money, or go bigger to win up to 100x. Right now, Underdog is giving new customers a special pick for Anthony Edwards. All he needs to do is have 1 point to win. Here are my picks for this week's NBA games, and if it hits, I'll 6x my money. I've got a special promo. Underdog is now offering new users a $100 deposit match. That's right, $100. Underdog is available in 30 plus states including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player pick'em game in Florida. All you have to do is click the link below or download Underdog via the App Store and use code PatrickCC. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PatrickCC for a first deposit match worth up to $100. It makes watching the NBA even more interesting for me. So rep your team and make your own picks with Underdog.
From 1992 to 1996, I was a series regular on Nickelodeon's All That. I was only 12 years old, and that's when my nightmare began. I was physically, mentally, emotionally abused in front of the producers and cast members, and sometimes they could even hear me yelling. But nothing was done to help me until approximately 1996 when CPS was called.
We'll consider it.
And when CPS came, I was pressured by all the adults that were set to protect me to stay silent. I did, and I have. But I can no longer stay silent, and I won't. My name is Angelique Bates, and I am an adult survivor of child abuse. And this is my story.
Angelique is the first known survivor who has spoken up against Nickelodeon's corrupt practices, and her story is extremely important because it also highlights the parents' involvement in such abuse. Angelique recalls Nickelodeon producers being upset that her mom was constantly supervising her.
They started having a bullseye for her, was that she was one of the parents that was not going to leave me unattended on set because by law, parents are supposed to be there. So they didn't like that fact that she wouldn't leave.
Some parents would leave their kids unsupervised while they work. They trusted the producers and did not want to interfere with their child's opportunity to build a career for themselves. Angelique's mother was not like that, and she even recalled a time where someone made a sexual advance towards her and her mother threatened to sue the network. Unfortunately, Angelique's mother was also physically and emotionally abusive towards her, so she wasn't safe on set or at home.
The double-edged sword with my mom beating my ass, but then she's like protecting me from Nickelodeon all at the same time. Like, she blocked all that. Like I said, the reason why they started hating her was because she was blocking me from that and because she was turning down sexual advances from it.
Angelique slowly received less and less work due to her mother's involvement and believed she was blackballed by Nickelodeon because she and her mother could not be controlled. And because no wrongdoings were ever officially reported, All That ratings continued to soar. The series propelled the careers of cast members Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell, who starred in the first All That spin-off, Kenan and Kel. The show originally aired on Nickelodeon for 4 seasons from 1996 to 2001 and was equally as successful as All That, winning the Favorite TV Show award at the 1998 Kids' Choice Awards. They also starred in the Nickelodeon cult classic film, Good Burger. However, with Schneider in charge, not much changed behind the scenes. Taisha Hampton, ex-wife of Kel Mitchell, spoke out on suspicious behavior she experienced on Nickelodeon sets. Taisha was married to Mitchell from 1999 to 2005, but they originally met on the set of Good Burger where she was casted as an extra. She too backs up the claims that parents were not around.
And these parents, like Kel's parents, were not with him. All these parents of the kids on the show, their parents were not with them.
Separate the children from the parents. That seems to be a theme with Nickelodeon. There are 2 main reasons why they likely did this. Firstly, it seems like Nickelodeon was trying to take advantage of loose child labor laws in Florida, where the shows were filmed. According to the 1998 Florida Child Labor Code, minors aged 15 and under could work 40 hours per week as long as it was during a holiday or summer vacation. 16 and 17-year-olds who graduated from high school or had their GED did not have to abide by any work hour restrictions. A school superintendent could also issue a waiver of hours, and there is no law that specifically states a parent must supervise their kid while their child is working. However, regardless of what the code says, child labor experts say the laws were rarely enforced or penalized when there was a violation. In 1992, Jeffrey Newman of the National Child Labor Committee said that child labor today is at a point where violations are greater than at any point during the 1930s. One report found that the average business could expect to be inspected once every 50 years or so. Inspectors spend only about 5% of their time looking into child labor problems. Businesses across the entire nation were taking advantage of loose child labor laws in the 90s. Do you think Nickelodeon was any different? Children are more susceptible to exploitation and abuse in the workplace due to their vulnerability and lack of bargaining power. Think of how easy it would be for a TV producer to torment and gaslight a young actor if they weren't getting their lines right or performing to the producer's standards. But if their parents were there on set witnessing their child get scolded, they might cause a fuss. Producers want as little friction as possible, so it's not crazy to think that they probably cast talent with parents who stay out of their way. But once they do get the parents out of the way, what do they do with the kids?
Because we would get into clubs, and we were young, like 16, 17 years old, and we'd be in clubs. And the people on the set in Florida made us fake IDs. And so then I started thinking, I was like, wait. And then they were talking about orgies, and they were talking about, like, people on the set would show, like, pornos, and they'd give us alcohol.
Those were kids, like young kids on that set.
Yeah, these are grown 30-year-old men and women.
Showing this to the kids.
16, 17, 15, 14-year-old kids. But another one of the cast members was like cleaning Dan Schneider's car with a bikini on. And now this time she had been 15, 16 years old. There were other times they would have like parties where the parents wouldn't be there, and they'd give us alcohol. And another one of the people on the cast was giving blowjobs to the producers.
Wow, one of the kids.
And they were kids.
Tracy Brown, whose son Brian Hearn was cast on All That for season 7 and 8, tells a similar story from a mother's perspective.
Because there are many times on that set where they're like, hey, we want to invite Brian to a party. And I'm like, hey, just Brian? And they go, yes. And I'm like, no. And they don't like moms that take control of their child. But I had heard things. So guess what? You don't need to like me. And they were like, well, bye-bye. And I was like, let's go. I was not going to do anything for the money. Like, y'all need to understand, I'm that woman. I'm not going to do anything that might compromise my son, not even for the income.
But many even suspect that the producer's perversion may have been scripted into the shows, starting with Kyra on Kenan and Kel, who was just 12 years old but was always trying to flirt and make sexual advances on the much older Kel. She would refer to him as her boyfriend despite him being obviously uninterested because she is a child. At the same time that Kenan and Kel were huge stars, one All That cast member emerged and became the most iconic Nickelodeon star of all time, Amanda Bynes. At just 10 years old, Amanda stood out amongst her peers and showcased her comedic talents through various characters and sketches. As a preteen, she was maturely confident and comfortable on screen. According to Leon Frierson, who was cast on All That since season 1, Schneider showed clear favoritism for Bynes. "We had to go to school on set. There would be times when Amanda would just be missing," he recalled in the docuseries. "A lot of times we would hear she would be with Dan, pitching ideas and writing. We see them grow closer to each other on set." He continued, "Amanda Bynes' parents were very hands-on in her career, specifically her dad. His presence was always felt. A big part of that was his relationship with Dan Schneider. Like we said before, hands-on parents were not wanted on Nickelodeon's set. That is, unless they are bending to the interests of Dan Schneider." Despite the favoritism, Dan never planned on giving Amanda her own show because he claims he never wanted to be on children's television. He initially created and helped produce a series called Guys Like Us for the United Paramount Network at their primetime 8 p.m. slot. Guys Like Us revolves around two young men, Sean Barker and Jared Harris. The pair are forced to look after Jared's 6-year-old brother Maestro, who comes to live with them after Jared's father accepts a job opportunity overseas.
"Why don't you go wash your hands?"
They're clean.
"Well, then go wash your feet."
Dan's sitcom designed for adults was an utter failure as he was not funny nor creative enough to keep adults entertained. It was cancelled after one season due to abysmal ratings, so he shifted his focus to creating a show around Amanda. The Amanda Show was a sketch comedy television program that had a very similar look, feel, and comedic style as All That and Kenan and Kel. Schneider struck gold again. The Amanda Show became the highest rated live-action television program on Nickelodeon during its run. Amanda portrayed various characters that would become iconic, such as Judge Trudy, Crazy Courtney, and Amanda's obsessive fan, Penelope Taint.
My name is Penelope Taint. I'm Amanda's #1 fan, please.
And it took us 20 years to realize that her last name was a sexual innuendo. People also think that her catchphrase, Amanda Please, was built off the phrase, a man to please, which would be such a deep, detailed level of innuendo that it's kind of hard to believe. However, as this video goes on, it just seems more and more possible. People today also believe that her sketch called Amanda's Jacuzzi may have been inappropriate since the whole concept was her as a 13-year-old interviewing mostly grown men in a hot tub. And of course, another foot joke.
Is it also true that you can put both of your feet inside your mouth at the same time?
I don't know. No.
Even Dan decided to jump in the jacuzzi with Amanda.
Welcome to my jacuzzi. Today my special guest is the executive producer of The Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now you're the executive producer of the show.
Yes, I'm the executive producer and the head writer.
People believe Dan was almost bragging by creating lightly sexual conduct into his kids' shows, like the Spitballer 5000, which was a phallic object that the kids had to blow into to launch a giant spitball at someone. Behind-the-scenes footage indicates that Dan and Amanda were very close, which is why it was shocking that The Amanda Show abruptly ended in 2002, just 3 years after it aired on Nickelodeon. In an interview with The Times, Bynes explained that she decided to leave for other opportunities. "I was having fun, but at 15, you don't want to be doing what you did when you were 12. Schneider also commented on her exit with, "I've seen kids in her position experiment with drugs and be too promiscuous, but Amanda has avoided all of that. My wife, who knows her, says she's almost like Marsha Brady in that she's so clean-cut and wholesome." This quote seems characteristically odd from Dan, like she was just talking about transitioning to more mature roles like her sitcom What I Like About You, and he had to bring up drugs and sex for some reason. Many years later, cast members would come out and speak about how they perceived Amanda behind the scenes. Actress Chelsea Brummett, who co-starred on All That, recalled, "She was closed off to everyone. You'd ask her a question and she'd give you a quick answer to end the conversation. She was always defiant with her dad, but she tried to hide things from her dad. She always seemed like she was trying to hide things. they would butt heads. This recountment does line up with the timeline of 2003, where Amanda sought to be emancipated from her parents at just 17 years old. In June of 2003, Amanda's agent, manager, and lawyer were all abruptly fired by her parents. The young star, now 17, was seeking legal emancipation from her parents, who were furious when they discovered that the reps had concealed this fact from them. Unfortunately, Amanda was not able to successfully get emancipated. During this rough patch in her life, Bynes reportedly leaned on Schneider and his wife, Lisa Lillian, for support. She was spending a lot of time with us, said Lillian, but she never left her family's house. This direct quote from Dan's wife is strong evidence that Dan and Amanda were close off set. Amanda has spoken out very strongly against her father and maybe at the time looked at Schneider as a replacement father figure. Dan also recently recounted a night where Amanda ran away from home.
One night, it was very late, well after midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning. Phone rang, I answered, it was Amanda. She was upset, she was in distress, she had had some conflict with her parents, I think her father, and she called me. I was immediately concerned about her safety. I called someone who I knew was fairly nearby. That person was able to go and pick her up. Then I knew she was safe. I felt better. She ended up being taken to the police.
As much as people blame Dan for the downfall of Amanda's career, or claim that he had suspicious involvement that's deeper and more inappropriate, throughout Amanda's whole life and numerous public spirals, she never blamed or accused Dan Schneider of anything. All of her anger and horrible accusations were towards her biological father. However, the cloud of mystery and potentially inappropriate behavior surrounding Amanda, as well as her obviously broken family life, seemed to be a common gray area Dan found himself in with his stars. Over the years, some of the most prominent stars like Jamie Lynn Spears, Jeanette McCurdy, and Ariana Grande all had absent fathers. On one hand, you can blame the parents. On another, you could look at Dan as a predatory opportunist. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. But there was a real convicted predator who worked underneath Dan Schneider. Jason Handy, a production assistant who worked on All That and The Amanda Show, exchanged email addresses and phone numbers with parents and kids who thought he was a friendly and helpful presence on set. You thought, oh, I could be friends with this person, said MJ, the mother of a former actress on The Amanda Show, who was identified as Brandy. The mother was mortified when she saw her 11-year-old daughter looking at a graphic email from Handy.
It was a picture of him naked, masturbating. And he said he had sent it to her because he wanted her to see that he was thinking of her.
Her daughter left the entertainment industry after that email. Handy was arrested in April of 2003 after law enforcement received a tip about him. When the police investigated his home, they found over 1,700 images of young girls in erotic poses, as well as 7 videos on CD files of children engaged in sexually explicit conduct. In Handy's personal diary, he wrote sentences like, "I am a pedophile full-blown." He added, "I have really been giving into my desire for little girls these past few weeks." And then he detailed his day-to-day struggle on how he could find a victim that he could sexually assault. In 2004, Handy was sentenced to 6 years in prison after being convicted on 2 felony counts, one of lewd acts on a child and one of distributing sexually explicit material by email, as well as on a misdemeanor charge related to sexual exploitation of a child. Many of you are probably thinking 6 years is not enough, and surprise, surprise, he got out and in 2014 committed 2 other felony sex offender violations with a child. Allegedly, Handy's case prompted Nickelodeon to toughen its background checks for all employees, trying to prevent this from happening again. Yet somehow, this was not even close to the last time a pedophile would infiltrate Nickelodeon's network. Actor Drake Bell formed a bond with the dialogue coach Brian Peck during the 2nd season of The Amanda Show. Peck, who has no relation to Drake's co-star Josh Peck, would invite Drake to his house for acting lessons. These lessons were supervised by Drake's father, Joe, who was told that Brian Peck was a skilled coach who would help Drake secure more acting opportunities. However, over time, Joe became uncomfortable with their relationship.
And unfortunately, I started seeing Brian start to just hang around Drake too much. And it didn't set well with me. Drake would be in the dressing room or something, and in would pop Brian, and just touch Drake. You know, do things that, wait a second, What are you doing? Drake can put that on himself. And the thing is, this is in front of people.
Joe expressed his concerns with production personnel and said he was uncomfortable with Brian, only to be called homophobic because of Brian's sexual orientation. Therefore, Joe backed off. Once this got back to Brian, he manipulated Drake into severing ties with his father/manager, suggesting that Joe was sabotaging Drake's career. Peck subsequently integrated himself into multiple areas of Bell's life and became a father figure for the young actor. Eventually, Peck convinces Drake's mother to let him stay at his house during auditions. These predators entice the children with fame and fortune, convince them that their parents are trying to hold them back, then totally isolate them and do who knows what behind closed doors. It's likely that all the kids who made it out unscathed were because of parents who stepped in and removed their child from the situation before it was too late. However, the more popular the actor was, such as Drake Bell, the more difficult it became to remove them from the industry. Sadly, with Brian Peck and Drake Bell, we do know what happened behind closed doors. When Drake slept on Brian's couch, the sexual assault began.
I was sleeping on the couch where I would usually sleep, and I woke up to him. I just opened my eyes, I woke up, and he was sexually assaulting me. Why don't you think of the worst stuff that someone can do to somebody as a sexual assault? And that'll answer your question.
Drake wouldn't tell anyone for several months. The abuse persisted until Drake began spending more time at a girlfriend's house. One day, when he was supposed to meet with Brian, Drake said he did not want to hang out. Brian then started calling his phone nonstop. When Drake failed to answer, Brian obsessively started calling his girlfriend's house, which is when the girlfriend's mother suspected something was wrong and took Drake to her family therapist. He later detailed the abuse to his own mother, who called the police. I had to be excruciatingly detailed about every single thing and time that it had happened with two absolute strangers. The worst part was I had to make a phone call to Brian and get him to admit to what he'd done. The police monitored a wired phone call with Brian, who broke into a full-on confession that led to his arrest. The investigation was conducted privately, and Bell remained unidentified to the public for several years due to his age at that time. Drake did tell Dan Schneider about this situation right before the trial.
And when Drake and I talked and he told me what had happened, I was more devastated by that than anything that ever happened to me in my career thus far. And I told him, I'm here for you. What do you need? But Drake's mom, a lovely woman who I stay in contact with this day, she came to me at the time and she said, Dan, I'm not good with words like you are. And would you help me with my speech for the judge? I said, of course, and I did.
During Brian Peck's trial, numerous prominent figures in the entertainment industry wrote letters of support vouching for his character, including James Marsden, Taran Killam, Growing Pains star Alan Thicke, Boy Meets World actors Will Friedle and Ryder Strong, among others. Some of these figures, including Friedle and Strong, have since expressed their regret over writing the letters and stated that they were manipulated by Peck's misinformation. Brian Peck was convicted of child molestation in 2004, pleading no contest to a charge of oral copulation with a minor under 16 and a charge of performing a lewd act with a 14 or 15-year-old. He spent only 16 months in prison and was mandated to register as a sex offender. And if you are surprised at that abysmally low sentencing, Peck got out and secured a job working for Disney's The Suite Life of Zack and Cody in 2006, where he voiced London Tipton's talking mirror for 3 episodes. The Disney Channel hired a registered sex offender. Despite these horrible circumstances, Drake remained in the industry and would go on to star alongside Josh Peck in their legendary buddy comedy, Drake and Josh, which again caused the network's ratings to explode to new heights. The series premiere was watched by 3.2 million viewers, the network's highest rated series premiere in nearly 10 years. Drake and Josh episodes regularly saw viewership upwards of 5, 6, 7 million. As of 2006, the show ranked consistently among the 10 most watched cable shows across all of television, and you could just add Zoe 101 to the list of Dan's dominant programs, which saw an average of 3 million viewers per episode. It was on the set of Zoe 101 where even more photos emerged of Dan getting a little too comfortable with the cast, particularly Erin Sanders, who was merely a child being held and coddled on Dan's lap. You can also see this photo where Dan's hand is resting on the child's lower back. Zoe 101 also had 34 different kissing scenes across its 4 seasons. While this may not seem that strange for a teen drama show, it did often lead to underage female actresses kissing over 18-year-old males. Brando Eaton was 20 years old and Victoria Justice was 14. Victoria at this time also had to kiss Jaron Vosberg, who was 18. And get this, 12-year-old Jamie Lynn Spears had to kiss 22-year-old Justin Timberlake on the set of All That, and Justin dated Britney Spears, which is Jamie's sister, 3 years earlier. Also, this Zoe 101 scene resurfaced recently, and many believe it to be a sexual innuendo. Spears' co-star, Alexa Nikolas, recalled Dan making a crew member squirt the syringe of goo at Spears over and over again. It's also important to remember that all of the information that you now know from this video was totally unknown by the public at the time. All the allegations and predatory behavior was all silenced before they could ever reach headlines. Barely any media outlets were reporting on why pedophiles were allowed to work on set. Survivors were scared to speak their truth, and even if they wanted to, they would have to go through a publicist or rely on a potentially corrupt media outlet to tell their story the right way. All anyone saw was the final product on television, so we assumed everything was consensual and safe and approved by people who had the best interests of the children in mind. Even if the network was suspicious of Dan and his production staff, which they weren't, they were going to do anything and everything to protect his reputation because Nickelodeon was red hot. At this point, they had been the #1 network in viewers aged 2 to 11 for over a decade. They were raking in millions of viewers and billions of dollars. Dan had more power than ever and was about to unleash all of his sick fantasies through iCarly. The basic premise of iCarly was that Carly Shay, played by previous Drake and Josh co-star Miranda Cosgrove, and her friends Sam and Freddie, played by Jeanette McCurdy and Nathan Kress, produce a web show from Carly's older brother's apartment. The show resonated with the real-world rise of online content creation and the growing influence of social media platforms like YouTube during the 2000s. The show within a show encouraged fan interaction by incorporating segments that invited viewers to participate in the show's interactive elements. Additionally, the characters often responded to fan mail and viewer submissions on their web show, further blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Like, take a look at this time they called a 12-year-old fan.
Do you have any questions for Sydney?
I follow your Twitter.
How old are you?
I'm 12.
No way, I just turned 16.
You're 12?
Yes.
I'm like a little over double that.
Yeah, Jerry's all old. So what do you like about iCarly?
I love it. It's really funny.
Anything else you want to know about iCarly or any questions or anything?
No.
No, you're all set?
Nope.
Thank you.
I know what I know.
Would you like us to get on a plane and come to your house?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Dan himself often communicated directly with fans on his blog, danwarp.blogspot.com, where he gave behind-the-scenes information and did Q&As. He also started giving tons of behind-the-scenes clips to his